Hi, everyone. I want to talk about the ups and downs of compositing live action footage into Unity, into a 3D environment so that you can create your stories or your augmented reality applications and so forth. So, I'm going to go over the software that I use, the techniques that I applied. And before we do that, I want to talk about something really cool about the technique that we are going to apply. It it allows your green screen footage to be completely affected by the light and shadow of the world that is your 3D environment. Pardon me, the sound of my bird. His cage is beside my table, and he and I are having a day today, and he's just kind of chirping away. So you will hear him throughout. So he says hello. So let's get back to the video. You'll notice how our character is in he's lit by a light when he's here. And as we scroll through the playhead, he dips into shadow. That's completely because of the lighting within this 3D world. And I'll show you the original footage. You can see that this is just video from a YouTube recording. So like kind of a stock footage kind of thing. It's not something I recorded myself. This is kind of like if you do a search for like 100 green screen actions or something like that, you'll find things like this. So you'll notice that the lighting is consistent. It's high key and it's consistent throughout the entire clip. And yet, when we bring that same footage into the world, we can have him lit and go in and out of shadow. That's incredibly cool and goes a long way to grounding your stage recordings into the environment of your world. So let's talk about how this happened using, we're going to demo this using a stock scene, which is HDRP Unity 2020 LTS. This is just straight HDRP. I've not done anything at all to this project. So let's talk about the tools that you'll want for this. This is the tool that I utilize, and it's by a developer who's really great at extending Unity for the purpose of virtual production. And he is a fellow Blade Runner fan, as you can tell. The name of his products are Deckard Render and Deckard Chroma Key, respectively. For this video, we're focusing on Deckard Chroma Key. And this is the Indie bundle. There's an enterprise version. The enterprise and the Indie are 100% identical. You are not going to lose out on functionality if you go with Indie rather than the enterprise. The only difference is in the developer support. That's it. So the Indie comes with its written documentation, and I believe Enterprise comes with, let's say, I'm not going to speak for the developer, but I think it comes with like X number of months or like a year or like a certain number of hours of one-on-one live support where you can do a Zoom call with him, that type of deal. Okay. So the Indie is 100% perfect for what we're going to do, and it's what we're going to use today. I've already imported this into my project, so I have the tools in here. So let's go ahead and throw something in. So the first thing we're going to do is when you install Deckard Chroma Key, under your game object menu, you're going to get a submenu for Deckard. Now, you will see Chroma Key HDRP and Chroma Key Standard. Ignore the physical camera and the outdoor ambient light. Those belong not to Deckard Chroma Key, but to Deckard Render. I have them both, and that's why they're both present. But you do not need Deckard Render at all for what we are doing today. So, under Game Object, you have Deckard Chroma Key, HDRP, and Standard. These are basically prefab tools for getting you started, right? So you don't have to build things from scratch. Because we are in HDRP, I'm going to use Chroma Key HDRP, and here we see Deckard Chroma Key added to our scene. Here are the steps. The documentation is probably clear, but for whatever reason, I do have a little bit of difficulty deciphering the steps on occasion. So I'm going to step by step do what you need to from the very beginning. So right off the bat, of course, our decorative object is way off in the distance, so I'm going to bring it into view. That'll be our first line of attack, and I'm going to be able to we'll place it where we can see it. So here we go. So I'm going to just rotate this. I want everything to be easy to see. So now that the plane or the game object is in view, I'm going to create a new profile. This is you get to do these tools by selecting the Deckard Chroma Key object. You have the keying profile, create new. This will create it. It will be in your project. If you ever want to know where it is, simply click on the keying profile name while project is selected. If project is highlighted, then by clicking on the name, it will select it for you. And that's the fastest, easiest way I have discovered or that I know of for navigating to it. So now that we have a new project or a new um, game object, we can have three types of video feeds on our Chroma Keyer. We can choose to use our device's webcam or an external webcam, and it's live. And it gives you an index, meaning you will be able to see a full index between, let's say, if 0 and 4 if you have 5 different webcams. Okay. So, but we are going to work with pre-existing footage, which means we will work with a render texture or a video. So I'm deleting this video player because I want us to do everything from absolute scratch. So the first thing that I want to do is come in and choose video. This will ask us for a video player. Well, we don't have a video player, so we need to put one into our scene by right-clicking, choosing video player. Video player will, of course, want to play a video clip, and we need to choose a video clip to play. At the moment of this recording, Deckard includes a green screen clip. This changes from version to version, and I've seen the actual clips change as well. So yours might look a little different if you're watching this in the distant future. But I'm going to choose this clip. And now we need to play this texture somewhere. So this chroma key, Deckard Chroma Key, does not have, uh, that I'm aware of, a render texture that I can select and choose to play on. So what I need to do is go into project. I'm going to, uh, just for organizational purposes, I'm going to create a folder. We'll call this Deckard testing. You place these wherever you like, whatever kind of hierarchy you want. So we are going to create. So in this folder, I'm creating, right click to come up to create render texture. I want this render texture to be HD. The default size is always, if you see in the inspector, it'll be 256 by 256. I'm changing this to 1920 by 1080 and tab to set it. So I now have a new render texture. I'm going to give it a name and I'm going to call it my render texture. Super creative. So back on the video player, remember, it is asking for the source, which is a video clip. We've already assigned the video clip to be the included clip, but it wishes for a target texture. You'll see that render mode is set to render texture. So the target texture is going to be the render texture we just created. So I'm going to drag my render texture here. And now we're going to go to Deckard Chroma Key. And we are going to, so the source type is a video, which means it's asking for a video player. Remember, webcam is for choosing a webcam. Render texture would be what we will do after this, means you will select a render texture. But For video, and this should probably say video player, but it says video, you're going to choose which video player you want. You can drag this over into the slot, or I only have one video player in my scene. So by clicking on this dot, I can select the only available video player. So there it is. So you'll notice that with the root game object selected for Deckard Chroma Key, that there's no options for choosing the key. How do you set the key? They're not out in the open for you to access. My first instinct was to dial down. I thought, well, surely they're probably in here somewhere. They are not. So choose the root object. And do you remember in the beginning when I said keying profile? If you want to find it in your project, make sure project is highlighted, and then just simply click on keying profile. So I'm clicking on keying profile. Unity has highlighted this profile. There are many of them, but this is the one that is being applied. So I'm going to click once to bring it into the Unity editor. You can now see we have all of the controls for setting up a key. Now we cannot see anything whatsoever. So the first thing you're going to do, and you're not going to see anything in the beginning, is to adjust the threshold. The developer has said in one of his live streams, of which there are many that you can find online to help you go through them. They are rather long, so make sure you have some time to go through them um, if you choose to do so. One of the most helpful things I heard the developer say is that each of these settings is in a descending order of importance, meaning to get a good key, start here at the top with threshold. But once you get close, you're not going to have to scroll down and find some like step number 2 amongst all this. Just go in order. So starting with threshold because it's at the top. I can't see anything, so I can't do anything wrong. So I'm just going to randomly do things. And you can see we're starting to see something. So I'm going to just play around, figure it out. And there we go. We're getting close. So there's a semi-transparent background, but of course we want to key this all the way out. So I'm just going to guide it about until I find something that seems to work. I may or may not speed this up because this is, if you know anything about keying, it's all a very trial and error process. And, you know, it all depends on your footage and everything else. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm also probably going to speed this up, and I'll see you back in a moment. Okay, so let's jump right in here. So I adjusted the threshold until it was fairly close and gave a clean key around our figure here. But you'll notice that I did skip from threshold. I skipped over threshold L and I came to soft transition. Soft transition allowed me to refine right now it looks like a sheer curtain. It's transparent, but it's a sheer curtain behind it. Soft transition allowed me to kind of dial that out to a reasonable degree. Now, why did I skip threshold L if it is the second setting in the list? And I did recently say go in order, go in descending order. Threshold is think of the threshold for the entire image, and the developer put threshold L, which stands for lower, for any scenario in which you are keying. Let's say you have an entire figure. Threshold L is going to be the lower half of your key. So let's say that up top, your key is bright green and you have an even key down at the bottom, but your lights fall off a little bit and it's a bit darker, and you even have some shadow from your actors. Well, threshold L will allow you to dial in the keying on the lower half of the screen while while preserving the integrity of the key up top. Okay, that's the way that I understand it and I have heard it described. So right now you can see that we have problem corners. We have a problem along the upper edge of the key, and then we have this terrible corner. So the beautiful thing is, if we scroll down, we can find cropping options. So I'm going to crop the top just a little bit to get rid of that terrible line around the top. I'm going to crop the left side, and this is to get rid of. Now we're looking at this backwards, so let me spin this around. There we go. And now I remember I to get to those keying options, I need to find them again, and that means back here on the master object, click on Keying Profile, highlights the profile you're currently using, click it once to bring up your Chroma Key settings, and because you'll probably lose them back and forth as you go about. So let's crop out this left side. So crop left, I'm going to bring that in. Good. I'm going to do the same for the right, and I'm going to take it further in because I have this jutting corner, which is really needs to be taken out. So crop right, bring that in. Wonderful. All right. So we talked about, so that's how we get it into our scene. So we talked about it being reactive to light. And you can see here he is in shadow. As we move him in light, we can have that light just kind of slightly fall over part of his face, or we can place our entire actor in light. And of course, the beautiful, beautiful thing about this is that it casts a shadow. This is wonderful. Now, this Deckard keying system will react to fog, volumetric fog, in the same manner that it reacts to light. That means you can create really immersive scenarios. So if we go back to our uh, example scene, here at the bottom, like you can see that he has more light up top and then he gets dimmer as he goes down, but he's also casting shadows. And also in this scene is just a little bit of density fog layer, which is around the bottom of basically from the console downward to the ground. And that means that that fog is interacting with his legs as well. So, so here I've got this set in. So I'm just going to increase its scale to a ridiculous degree. And I also want to place our scene camera. I'm going to Shift Command F to orient it to the current view, which means if we switch to game view, this is what we will see now. All right. So if you are keying with, um, uh, uh, you're putting live action footage, pre-recorded footage, webcam streams, anything into a 3D world environment, then this is the way you go about it. I often work with timeline. Um, and I want to, let's see, I want to show you one extra thing of something that's incredibly important. All right, so it looks like I did reset this, which is good because I wanted to reset it so I could walk you through it from the start to finish. Now, on my timeline, let's go ahead and create a new timeline. I'm just going to delete this. All right, so it's gone. So I'm going to right click, create empty. I'll call this game object uh, test timeline. And I'm going to, with test timeline selected, I'm going to create a timeline. which asset. I'm creating a timeline asset. In your hierarchy, this is a timeline game object. It can be anything, but I like to create an empty thing so that the only thing the timeline game object contains is, in fact, a timeline asset. When you click this create button, it will ask you where in your project do you wish to create your timeline asset. So I'm just going to save it in apparently with my profiles. So I'm saving. Anytime that you click uh, off of your timeline, so if I click onto video player, my timeline goes away, right? Because it's asking me, oh, do you want to create a timeline asset in your video player? Or do you want to create it in your camera? Do you want to create another in your VisFX? No, I just want one uh, uh, timeline game object with one asset, and I don't want it to disappear when I click on other things. So the way you do that is select your game object, you see your timeline, come up to this upper right, unlocked is the default. Simply click it to be locked. What that does is now you can click on any other game object that you have in your scene and your timeline will remain. So let's create a timeline that does things. I'm going to animate this sphere in the background to just kind of move from one side of the screen to the other. So I am selecting uh, the the prop. So I want the whole thing. So I'm going to drag this down into my timeline as an animation track because I want to animate it. So now to create the actual animation, I'm going to record the animation. So I'm going to set keyframes for it. And in order to set keyframes, you have to be recording. So I'm going to click record for this specific object. And I'm just going to wiggle it to set a keyframe. You can see there's a gray keyframe now. I'm going to move forward. Let's go to 10 seconds. And at 10 seconds, I want this sphere to be here. So now I can turn off recording. And as I scrub my scene or my timeline, our sphere will move side to side. But our video is not playing as well. So if you are in a position where you're just like, well, I just want to get a good key and then I will create my scene and all I know is that I want the guy to be where he is. So I've positioned him, but that's good enough. I'm going to save. Okay, let's enter play mode and we should see, but we won't, but we should see our video playing. So play mode activates and we see that our scene is here. And yet we get an error, right? We see this gray stand-in and we have an unassigned reference exception. The variable of RT, which I believe to stand for render texture of Deckard Chroma Key, has not been assigned. This tripped me up for quite some time, and I want to show you why and also where it is. So render texture, it says that a render texture is not assigned. So I kind of double check my math. I'm going to lock my timeline in. So I double check my math. I go to my video player and target render texture, my render texture. That's assigned. Good. But it does say Deckard Chroma Key has not been assigned. So I go to Deckard Chroma Key and I found myself kind of going through like, okay, I have a profile, I have a source. This texture is not assigned, but that's for a mask. So that's not it, or so I felt. So that's not it. So here are all the other settings, and I didn't find it. So I'm like, where is this? So I go up to, with project selected, I go to my keying profile, highlight it, bring it up into inspector, and I do the same thing. So there is a garbage mat here, but that's the wrong garbage mat, and also I don't need it. Plus, I don't think we're using it because this is not checked, right? So in the profile, you go all the way to the very bottom, and then you have custom mask and an input texture. This is where it just made, I was like, oh, well, that's strange. It's a strange place for it to be, considering that it's absolutely required. So, what you need to do, I'm going to lock this inspector so that it stays. I'm going to find my assets and I'm going to, I believe that, find my folder. Yep, Decker testing. There's my render texture. So, I'm going to take the same render texture that my video play that I created for use with my video player, and I'm going to drag it into the input texture slot that is found within the Chroma Key profile. And the way you get to that profile, one last time, and the reason I keep drilling this in is because I had so much trouble, and I think it's the placement of where it is. So select your Deckard Chroma Key game object, find your keying profile, select the profile. It'll be highlighted for you. So click it once to bring it up into the uh, inspector, and then scroll all the way to the bottom and plug it into the input texture. So now, if I clear the console error, I should now be able to see this video play when I enter play mode, which we are doing now. So this will load up in a moment. So we are in game view and we should now see the video play. Let's find out. No, same same issue. So let's problem solve and find out why this is happening. I struggle with this almost each time that I bring this in. So at the beginning, when I'm starting um, a new Chroma Key project, this is video player, right? So I'm just out of curiosity and trying to figure things out. I'm going to switch from source type of video to render texture. It's going to ask for a render texture. I'm going to choose, I'm going to lock this into place. I'm going to choose the render texture that I created. There it is. And let's find out if I go clear these errors and enter play mode, what occurs? What happens? Does it play? Does it not play? Do I get that same error? I have a feeling it will play. No. So why? Why would the now the scene is playing? We can see the ball is activated, but we do see our character. That's good. So why is it not playing? Well, let's go into video player and unlock this. Playback speed 1. So okay, so we can see the ball is moving. The playback speed was 0, which meant that when we enter play mode, it will just not play. It will be frozen in place on the first frame. By setting it to 1, it will play at normal speed. By setting playback speed at 2, it will play at 2 times speed, and so forth. So I'm setting this to 1, and I am entering play mode one last time. So these are the little settings that get you. Maybe they wouldn't get you, but they get me. Okay, here we go. We have our video. Hey Siri, play my favorite playlist. Beautiful. That's what we want. So now we have working thing. But do you get to see the scrubbing? Like without, if we do not enter play mode, you can see that our scene is live, but our video is frozen. There is a tool. Now, so let me just say that what we were able to do just now is perfect if you just want to get the footage into your scene and place it and key it, right? So it'll give you the frame that you want. And if we go to Deckard Chroma Key object and we choose, let's go to video player. No, okay. There is an option on the Deckard Chroma Key. If render texture is set to video, you can preview by scrubbing this clip. You can basically go to various spots on your in your footage. So let's say that you have a super clean key on frame one, but somewhere for whatever reason, halfway through your clip, you get a nasty key. Well, this would allow you to preview and make sure that your key is clean throughout the entire thing. Okay. I find that useful. But what if you want to see, my bird is just going to town over there. He's got a toy and he is just, I'm sure you hear him. What happens if you want to be able to scrub and see everything working together? There is a tool that will allow you to do this, but it doesn't work on render texture or video alone. This is where, even though basically up to this point, you can do everything we just did with just Deckard Chroma Key tool. If you want to be able to scrub and see your video play uh, on the timeline simply by playing the timeline, then there is an included tool which you will find inside of, uh, I'll go to Package Manager, you will find inside of Deckard Render. Now, Deckard Render is the developer's other tool. So let's go with, it's in my assets and Deckard. So right now we've been working with Deckard Chroma Key Indie. Now, there is a script that the developer includes with Deckard Render out of a necessity of how Deckard Render works, in that it allows you to control the video playback speed. It locks, essentially it gen locks your video clip to the offline slower render speed of Deckard Render. But it has an added benefit when using Deckard Chroma Key Indie or Enterprise for that matter, because remember, they're the same. Now, because I have both of these installed, I can, before we get started, you notice scrubbing and we see the animation of the sphere in the background, but we do not see any movement of our guy. We can, because I have both installed, I can go to my video player, and the only component it has is a video player itself with its settings. I will add a component and I will search for video scrubber. And this script, this video scrubber script, is included in Deckard Render. Now I add this component to the video player. The scrubber script is going to ask for which video player do you wish to control. I only have one currently, so I choose it and I enter. It will ask for the frames per second of the video. It will ask for various things. Now it's going to ask, which timeline do you wish to gen lock your video player to? Which timeline is going to control the scrubbing position in your video? And we are going to choose test timeline. So there are 3 timelines in this scene. I'm choosing test timeline. Now these are the only 2 settings I've set. And you'll notice that scrub time and frame and scrub frame have been automatically filled according to the timeline. So right now the playhead is at 8 seconds and 33 seconds, and this believes it's at scrub time 8:55. Why would that be off? Well, I have a feeling it's because if I go into the settings of my timeline and look at frame rate, we're at 60 frame rate. but the frame rate is 25 for this script. So I'm going to move this to 60. And so it's still off a little bit because scrub time is 8.25 and this is 815. And I think that that is only because of some issues that Unity has, which is it's not deterministic in its in the way that it does frame accuracy. So, but you'll notice this video scrubber script now allows me to scrub without having to go into play mode, which is time consuming and slow and heavy. It just imagine every time you want to change something going back and forth into play mode. It would be painful. So here now we can scrub. If I simply hit play, it will actually play. So it's playing back fast. Let's find out why. Oh, 60. Let's go 25. Oh, so why would that matter? So um, frames per second is going to be uh, linked to the frame rate of your video and not your timeline. So if I click on video clip in project video clip, and I'm just going to open it up in Finder. I'm going to look at its attributes. Encoded frames per second, 23.98, which is 24 frames a second. All right. So in Unity, when you are working with Video Scrubber, if you choose to work with Scrubber, frames per second is the frame rate of your video. And I'm going to choose 24 because that's close to 23.98. So the frames per second is the video frame rate of your live footage, not the frame rate of your timeline. So, and to show that that's true, frames per second is 24, which we saw is the frame rate of our jogging man. And our timeline is still set to a frame rate of 60 frames a second. And yet we get a real time playback in this is accurate. So now we're able to see both things. So that's how I work uh, with this. Let's add a density fog. Maybe we'll break things. Maybe we won't. Let's find out. So we were in game mode, but keep in mind, like everything we're doing works in scene mode in the editor. So you're able to move things about, and you're going to see your footage working. All right. So let's just to show that we that the green screen does in fact respond to fog in the same manner that it responds to light and shadow. I'm going to right click and choose rendering density volume, and I'm going to change the size to, let's go with 6. Let's just go with, no, we'll do 2. No, maybe we'll do 1 for the height, and we'll do, so we'll bring this down. I'm going to place it on the ground itself. So there we are. And now we can see that our character is running through a fog volume or affected by a fog volume. Pretty handy, right? Pretty great. And we can see that we have a little keying problem, right? And that is the benefit for me, at least, to be able to use that video scrubber script. I really think it should be included with the chroma keyer as well as with render, because you're not always going to want Deckard renderer if that's not your aesthetic. Deckard renderer is a film emulation, uh, high quality offline. Offline meaning slower than real time uh, renderer for Unity. if you're just wanting to do chroma keying, but you don't want to do that offline render, you could still benefit from that script, the video scrubber script. And the reason why is like you can see like what if, I missed this little problematic I'm going to turn off the density volume. I missed this problematic corner where the key is not terribly good, and I may have missed it for a couple of reasons. Either it happened because I wasn't being careful, or it happened because I was doing the key in a position where that it's not as visible because it was in the shadow, or I mistook it for part of my environment, right? See these puddle decals? They're not terribly dissimilar in texture and color from this chroma key error. So when looking at a single frame, that kind of thing can sneak in, but you'll notice it really fast and easy when it's in motion. And that's why I'm a huge fan of the scrubber script, not only for this, but also for the ability to just see what you're doing and see everything in live action. And I love that, with this density fog, I love that that everything is involved, and it truly grounds your world in truly wonderful ways. So this is really powerful. So here you have a chroma keyer that I'm going to turn off gizmos, gives you a shadow. It responds to light and shadow as well, receives them, and it is influenced by fog volumes, both atmospheric and density volumes. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it was insightful, and I hope maybe you get out there and create some really amazing things. Um, uh, I mean, do something along your own tastes. I really like science fiction, so I gave this a shot. And I'm doing a short film with a friend of mine, and we don't have access to really great sets and interesting places. So I thought, well, I'd give, I'm going to try building this one. So this is what I built. I'll probably customize it further for our actual story, which is already written, but it's just going to be a 2 to 3 minute short film, and it's going to be live action actors in a 3D space. And this is going to be a lot of fun. I hope you have a lot of fun using Unity for virtual production. Tell me how you're using it. Let me know if you have issues or questions, or you're curious to know more about the tools, which are Deckard Chroma Key and Deckard Render. I'll do a video on Deckard Render again in another video. It's a different tool entirely for a different purpose, but this developer does tremendous work, and I cannot give it enough praise, to be honest. It has really improved the usability of Unity for the purpose of virtual production and real-time filmmaking. I adore it. I love it. I'm having a blast with it. And keep in mind, everything that you just saw me doing today and everything that you see here rendered, this is all done on a MacBook M1 Air with 8 gigs of RAM. So it's the lowest MacBook Air that you can buy. Now, granted, M1 is very, very impressive, but just keep in mind, like, how responsive all of this was in a world where Mac really trails behind Windows for things like gaming. And yet, look at that. It's tremendous. Um, so I hope you enjoy it. Get into it. Let me know. Tell me all about how you're using Unity for virtual production. Are you doing it for more like linear storytelling, or are you doing it for like augmented or even like virtual reality interaction worlds? Or are you doing a bit of both? I would love to know and hear all about it. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I'm Rick Pearson. This is Unity for Filmmaking, and I will see you in the next video. Like and subscribe if you can. It helps me out, helps other people like you and I find this channel as well. we all have questions, and I think it's super beneficial if we can all help one another and make it easy for the resources to be found. All right. So, to help others and help myself. Subscribe if you just want to be notified when the next video drops, and so forth. And I will see you in the next video.